right, guys, we're going to be doing soft pastels or chalk pastels. And if you open up your box, you will see this lovely little array. It's important to keep this little foam pad in here so that we can keep our pieces nice and protected. These do get a little brittle and sometimes they break, and that's totally okay as long as we don't crack them and turn them into as long as we don't pulverize them and just turn them into dust, we're fine. So these are chalk. Okay, they're very compressed though, so it's different than like sidewalk chalk, which if you ever use on a sidewalk, you have like a big piece of chalk like that and it wears down to nothing very quickly because those are mostly air. These are actually compressed and have a nice binder in them, so they'll stick to the page pretty well, but they're still very dusty and come off. You can use, when you're using these, you can use your finger to blend, which is really fun. And then you can also use blending stumps too if you want. And then the deal with these though is that they're kind of like paint, but they're dry. We can make something really, really beautiful with chalk pastels. You can make it look like this gorgeous, romantic, fluffy, feathery, soft looking painting, but it's a dry medium. The thing with paint is that usually we have a paint palette. For example, I was just painting a little earlier, right? And we have our paint here and we mix it on our palette and then we apply it to our painting. But the deal with chalk pastels is you apply it directly to your paper or your painting pretty much. So any color mixing actually happens directly on the page. Now you could practice on the side and determine a color and then apply it. But you could practice over here and try mixing colors and see what you get and then figure out the right combo and put it there. But yeah, so it's a dry medium. It's a little weird. We actually apply it directly to our drawing to create the color that we want, if that makes any sense at all. Now there's three classic ways of working with the pastels. One way is to blend it and have like sort of your classic like gradients and stuff. Another way is scumbling, and then the third is feathering. And these two are interesting because you leave the pastels a little bit more raw. You don't blend them so much with your fingers or your stumps. You allow the colors to sit on top of each other and blend that way. We're gonna practice today with different paper, and the chalk pastel paper comes in all kinds of different tones, and I chose a really dark one for right now. And usually when we talk about any material, we talk about whether to work from light to dark or dark to light. In terms of pastels, I am going to emphasize probably working a little bit more light to dark, but you can work light to dark and back in between. Our lighter colors can actually help blend colors, and you'll see in a little while. So let's start with a nice blended sphere. So I'm going to try and recreate the sphere I have here. And again, I emphasize working a little lighter to darker. And so I've already, if I didn't work light to dark, then if I try to do a nice sphere on this dark paper, I might not be able to get really light values like in the highlight of the sphere. Okay. And as you work with them and as you layer, I just already put a little bit of white down and rubbed it into the tooth of the paper. Okay. And when you're working with pastels, you kind of have to have an apron on or a wet rag nearby or something, because it's really fun to blend with your finger, but then you have to kind of clean it off. So I want to get some darker values. Whoops. Okay, and as you're working with this, the paper can kind of only absorb so much. It can actually absorb a lot, but as you're working with it, since it's such a dry medium, you'll see that it kind of creates dust on top of the paper, and you just blow it away. Okay, so where I said work light to dark and then dark back to light. Okay, and you're probably already seeing that you're able to layer these colors really nicely. Again, I'm always like cleaning off my finger that I use. I tend to use my ring finger. Okay, and I'm losing my highlight on my sphere. So I can kind of come back in and layer it up again. And there you go. Okay, now, do you see this extra little halo that we have? Might want to clean that up. And the nice thing about pastels is that it's an additive and a subtractive medium, meaning I can add to it. I can always add a little more. I could usually add a little more, but I can also subtract and actually erase some of it. So it's got a binder to it, but it's not like a paint binder where you can't erase paint or you can't erase pen and ink. That's got a stronger binder to it. This dry medium allows for a little bit of erasing, which is nice. Okay, very good. So that's my first one. So that was blended. Okay. Blended. Okay, the second one we'll do is scumbled. So with scumbling, you're putting little marks to do your shading and your color blending. You're basically letting more of the raw pastel. By raw, I mean like unmixed and untouched. You're letting it kind of sit on top of it. And again, I'm going to work from light to dark because sometimes it's hard to put a dark color down and then work light on top of it. So I started with yellow, and I'm just going to kind of come in with my little marks, which I'm just doing like little C's. Okay, it doesn't look like much, but you have to build it up a little bit. And then for my darker tones, going with some red. Okay, and as you're seeing, you're starting to create a little bit of a gradient. And again, work from light to dark and dark back to light. So as that's happening, I could take some of my marks and kind of layer them with the red that I already have so they blend a little bit better now. And you're really not trying to create such a smooth blend. You actually want to see some of those more chunky kind of like dots or marks. Maybe I'll try like a super bright highlight, so come in with that white. It almost is kind of like stippling. Okay, and then if I want to do a little bit of a cast shadow or something, maybe I'll do a little bit of black. And I'm just doing little marks, okay, like little C marks. That with some red and some orange in there. Okay. And this is additive, right? So I lost a little bit of my reflected light, but that's okay. So I can go back up onto it. Okay. And by doing all those little marks and layering them, it actually allows the colors to blend. So the pastels actually blend themselves as you push down on them without having to like rub it with your finger. All right, the last one is feathering. And feathering is again where we're blending and we're letting our marks show. Okay, and at first when we do this, it'll look a little raw. Again, I'm gonna work a little lighter to darker. So I'm gonna grab, I used some yellow already, I'm gonna use some of my light green, and I'm gonna go with some of my dark blue. Okay, and I know where my highlight is, it's in there. I already put some pastel down. And then feathering, I'm just gonna use these strokes, these lines, kind of like hatching. And what's going to happen after we start layering these is that they blend in their own way. They sort of feather together. I'm realizing that that's not showing up too well in the camera, so let me try the darker green. Yeah, that works a little better. Okay. So right now, while it looks a little harsh, it's okay. Those lines look a little harsh. We will blend them and they will sort of feather together and blend and have a soft effect as well. Okay, so remember, work light to dark and then dark back to light. Okay, so now I'm working backwards. Got a little dirty. There you go. You'll see that the colors start to create that gradient and blend. Maybe I want a little bit of white again for my super bright highlight. It's quite beautiful. And then for cast shadow, we'll go lighter to darker and then darker back to lighter. Okay. Oops. Darker green. Okay. Now that's looking really harsh, right? But that's okay because we work light to dark and dark back to light. So I'm going to take some of my lighter colors again. And it starts to feather and blend the strokes so that we still see the strokes, but they're softer. Okay, that was a really weird little cast shadow I did. I should have made it. It came out better on that one. The colors are gorgeous, just the shape of the cast shadow is a little awkward. It's a very dramatic cast shadow. But anyway, so once again, we have blended, we have scumbled. Whoops. And we have feathered. Oops. All right. And that's pretty much it. Enjoy.